Alright, so what I've got here is continuing from the rigging and binding I was doing before, the skin binding. So I'm going to go back to the shoulder. Sort of get an idea of where I'd like to adjust this from. Now one of the things I'd like to explain really quickly, when I bring this up on the clav, you'll notice that the arms stay there because I have the arm controls here, the FK arm controls parented to the chest control. Now I could parent it to here and then it all moves. Personally, I don't like it that way. And the reason being is because generally on a second pass I'll start doing my focusing more on my clavicle control, and more so I think it affects it a little bit more because I don't have him in a T pose. I have his arms at his side. However, I think it does affect it a little bit more because it's not in a T pose, but if it were, its same results do happen, but I generally will animate. I'll do a pass on the clav, but I focus a little bit more on it on a second pass of animation. So I generally like to have the arm remain sort of where it is, but have that little wiggle room of I generally just use this control to affect deformation in this region here. So it's heavily relies also on skin weighting. So that being said, I'm going to continue on paint skin weights, hit the little hammer tool, and generally it's always a great idea to begin to pose your character out to see how it's being affected. So if you'll notice, I'm getting pulled down here. I'm going to do that one more time. Just focus right down here. You'll see I'm getting a lot of pull in that region. So I'm going to simply go ahead and go here, go to my shoulder, and you have to be in default viewport in order to see the skin weights. And you'll see slightly some things happening in the elbow affecting that region. And all the way through, just to double check, it's always a good idea. Right. I'm mostly probably going to get pull from a little bit maybe from the ring, but probably from the pinky too. So let's see. Because that would be the closest point to here. Doesn't look like it, so that's always good. And I'm going to just double check the ring finger. So this is all looking pretty good. So now when I go ahead and just to double check, so it looks like I'm not getting any more pull. Alright, yeah, that's fine. And alright, so I'm holding control to do inverse, and the clav, let's go ahead and just check that. And I'm going to just run a smooth around here holding shift. And maybe a little bit less on there. And just smooth at this spot here. So starting to get some pretty clean deformation happening. So let's go ahead and throw this into here, and I'm going to go ahead and just skin, mirror skin weights. Just double check my settings, Y, Z. This should all be good, and mirror. So now this side should be the same. Beautiful. Cool. So yeah, as you can tell, I use this just simply for deformation, the clavicle. Now, pushing forward, let's go ahead and check some of these. So as I can see here, as I rotate, I'm getting this weird pull in words, and I'm not liking the way that's looking, so I'm going to go ahead and go in here and check my chest joint, spine 0. So you'll notice my chest is looking a little light on the skin weights, especially in this region. So I'm going to go ahead and start to fill that out. Nope, maybe not. Maybe smooth it out. It might not even be because of the chest joint. I'm going to go ahead and just run a quick smooth, but let's go ahead and run down and see if it has something to do with possibly the neck region. And it could be in the skull. So I'm going to go ahead and remove that weight from the skull on the chest, because I want to keep the shape of his muscular anatomy, like the pectoral region, as best as possible. And like the trapezius here is why I have the clavicle there. So I'm getting it from the jaw as well. Get rid of that. And for the most part, that should be it. So now I'm going to go back to the chest and see what was happening. And just as a double check, okay, let's go ahead and see what's happening with the chest here. So maybe just lightly got rid of some of that and gave it a little bit of skin weight, but I'm going to use the hammer tool on this one, sort of pop that back out. And that's a little bit better. So I'm going to continue with this. And I'm going to just press, holding shift, I'm just going to sort of smooth it out. And that should do it. Now I'll go ahead with the rest of these and just check to see how the spine's deforming and things like that. So again, losing a little bit of that region in the trapezius, or not the trapezius, in the abdominal, just underneath the pectoral region. And I'll check the twist in a second. I'm a little bit more concerned about the bend first. So that's a pretty extreme bend he's got there. So this is a pretty good way to start this. I could bring his arms forward. And I just noticed here that I'm on just the shoulder itself. I'm getting a lot of push and pull in the calf muscle region, so it's always a good spot to check. And go ahead and do the same to this one. Same thing happening. Just like the parachute pants I was referring to. Okay. So you want to put them into extreme poses and then go ahead and just skin weight it from there. So obviously a little off balance, possibly could even fall, but just to sort of get an idea. Just trying to see how this will look. So now I'm going to go back into my skin, and I know right away I'm getting something pulling from this region. Check the wrist. L index 2, 3, 4. I'm just going to run through and check all of these. And I'm getting it in the middle finger of joint 3. And let's see if the pinky's affecting it. No. So the middle finger is the longest finger on the hand, so maybe the ring finger. The pinky finger obviously isn't affecting it, nor was the index. Let's go ahead and see if the ring finger is. No. It could be in just joint 4, ring 4 joint. Yep, there it is, a little bit more. So check the thumb too, just in case. And it'll probably more than likely be in this region here. Okay. Now, let's go ahead and take a look here on the skull, head, and jaw. Okay. So I'm going to run through the spine now and go ahead and see what I can do here to sort of get this region a little bit more clean. So I'm going to start by smoothing this region out. Okay. And let's go ahead and grab for this joint and this joint, or vertex, I'm going to use the hammer tool and snap those in. And I might do the same for like any sort of vertices that are kind of just getting a little too much strange of a pull. And just sort of snap them into place. And I'm only doing this to a select few just because they're looking a little out too far affected by whichever joint, and it's difficult to tell. So it's starting to look a lot better in the back region, a little bit more smoother definition there. So let's go ahead and see here. If I go ahead, I'm going to run a double check down this chest region. This is starting to get to become a pretty good first pass on a skin weight. And really the only way to find out is through a full test of animation on it. But this certainly does help to get it started. And alright, spine 2. And I can always bring down the opacity because maybe it's just a little bit affecting too high in that region, which I think it was. So I'm getting a little bit more in the from spine 2. So my spine 2 is all the way down here, but it's affecting it all the way up towards the chest. So this one I might want to go ahead. Let's see. Give this a little bit larger of a brush size. I'm going to bring the opacity back up to 1 and run a smooth to start to smooth some of this region out. And maybe even bring this back down. Something like so. And one thing I'm worried about and concerned about is the texture stretching I'm going to be getting in up here. So in order to fix that a little bit, I can go ahead and add a little bit of skin weight in there. And now I'm just running a smooth to sort of even out, average out the skin weighting as best as possible. and hammer tool, and there we go. So I'm pretty pleased with the results here. I still got the deformation in the pectoral region that I wanted to retain. The stomach might be getting a little bit slim, but it's not too bad. So I'm pleased with that. And then I can go ahead and focus on the twist. But this is a great start. And let's go ahead here, here. Okay. And here. Okay. So all right. Really great start so far. I'll mirror my skin weights. And I'm going to now do the face. So here, I'm going to go through and on my skull, where is it? Here, this joint is basically going to control everything. So I'm going to bring my opacity all the way up. It's going to have pretty much all of the skin weights except once I do the jaw in a second. This is going to retain most of the skin weights on the head. Okay, so I'm just going ahead and filling that in. And then you'll notice in a few moments here I'm going to do and I'm just smoothing this region out. I'm going to do the jaw next. And you're going to notice that the jaw may or may not affect anything at the moment. Okay, so I'm going to bring the jaw all the way down. And I'm going to paint skin weights. Go down to my jaw. And first I'm going to remove any information I have on it first. That's the first thing I'm going to do. Because I don't want it to affect anything in the chest region, nor in the nose or any other region there. So now what I'm going to do is, I can show you pretty easily, I'm going to start to affect only the joints or the vertices that I want it to affect in the mouth region. So basically just the bottom of the jaw, because only the jaw only affects the chin region basically. Okay. Okay, good. Alrighty. So this region as well. And down here. And it's going to look funky at first, but you'll see in a second what I'm going for. Okay. Because you also have to do inside the throat if you have that area there. Okay. And that's a good way to get started on it. Now let's bring this back. And what I'm going to do here is, because I've already got a pretty good base on it, I'm going to start to fill in the region around. I kind of got the extreme that I needed first. So now I can go ahead and sort of fill out the region that it will affect a little bit more. Okay. Just going to keep pushing forward with that. All right, now let's go ahead and check the jaw one more time. Not too bad. I also have a rotation on it, so it can rotate as well. Let's go ahead and check it side to side. So here, got to do a little bit of fixing on the interior of the mouth, but for the most part, it's a really great start. Let's go here. And back into skin weighting. And so as you can see, I needed to affect right about here a little bit more. Okay. All right, take a second look at this again, see how that worked. Okay, and I'm just running a smooth on all this here to sort of average out the weights. Okay. All right. Here as well. Topology plays a major part in this region. And just continue pushing forward. Okay, now let's go ahead and come back to this point and test it the opposite way. Okay, and you'll see I'm getting a little spot here, so I'm going to run smooth vertices, smooth paint on the weights and begin to smooth that out. And you start to get a pretty decent look to it. All right. Cool. So that'll conclude today on painting weights.